I had an old warehouse. No one knew about it. Not my wife, not my kids, not even my closest friends. I didn't hide it because I was cheap. I hid it because I understood something simple. The fewer people know what you have, the fewer people will try to take it. That day, after months of staying away, I decided to stop by. I didn't tell anyone. No calls, no messages. I just got in my car and drove straight there. When I turned onto the dirt road leading to the warehouse, the sky was gray, wind cutting through the trees like something out of a movie. I parked a short distance away. Out of habit, old instincts die hard. And then I saw it. A black car was already there. Parked near the door. Lights off. Tinted windows. No delivery logo. No reason to be there by accident. I stepped out. Every crunch of gravel under my shoes sounded too loud. As I got closer, my chest tightened. Right in front of the warehouse door, a man stood with his back to me. Dark jacket, phone in hand, not searching, not confused, waiting. I spoke just loud enough to cut through the silence. "What are you doing here?" He turned around. "My son-in-law." He smiled calm. Like this had all been planned. "Dad, I got here early to check on things for you." I froze, because I had never told anyone this place existed, never shared the address, and I hadn't even arrived yet. But he was already there. That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't curiosity. This was timing. And only one kind of man shows up at the right place, at the right time before the owner does. A man who's been watching for a long time. That warehouse wasn't some movie-style stash full of gold. It was something more important, my last line of defense. The place I kept, the things that would let me stand back up if life ever turned on me. Inside there was some valuable equipment and leftover inventory from my business days, property documents, contracts, and copies of insurance papers, a backup version of my will, a small safe with USB drives and emergency passwords, and a few personal items from people I've lost, things I don't want anyone touching. I didn't hide it out of paranoia. I hid it because I've seen too many families fall apart in the name of good intentions. It always starts the same. Let me help you manage it. Then manage turns into hold, and hold turns into take. And in the end, what you lose isn't just your assets, it's control. My daughter, she's kind, and kind people trust too easily. Her husband Kyle is the kind of man who always sounds reasonable. I just want stability for the family. But his version of stability always comes with questions about money, about assets, about what belongs to who. I stayed quiet. I avoided the topic. It didn't, because with a hunter, silence doesn't stop them. It makes them more curious. And now here he was standing in front of a place I never told him about before I even got there. That means this isn't curiosity anymore. He has a map. He has a schedule. He's been watching. That warehouse was supposed to protect me from outsiders. But now it's been touched by someone inside the family. And once someone like that crosses the line, they don't stop at just one door. Looking back, I can see now Kyle didn't just show up at that warehouse. He'd been baiting me for a long time. At every family dinner, he'd drop questions that sounded like jokes. "Where do you keep your important documents safe, Dad? You got a private storage or something? If anything ever happens, who manages your assets?" He always smiled when he asked. My daughter would laugh along, but I didn't, because I know the difference between concern and surveillance. Concern asks about your health. Surveillance asks about locations and control. He'd also ask about my schedule. "Where are you going today? What time will you be back? You going alone?" Those aren't caring questions. They're how you map someone's empty windows. One time, he even offered, "Let me come with you. I can help." Help with what? Help opening the door. I told myself I was overthinking it, that maybe I was just being paranoid. But today erased that lie completely. I hadn't arrived yet, and he was already there. That means one of two things. Either he predicted my move, or he's been watching me long enough to know my patterns. And here's the part that hits hardest, the part that feels almost cinematic. When you show up to your own secret place, and someone else is already there, waiting, like it was planned. That's the moment you realize you're not in control anymore. You're being watched, and in that instant, you're no longer the owner. You're the target. I stood in front of the warehouse, looked straight at Kyle, and didn't bother with small talk. "How did you know I was coming here today?" Kyle gave a small smile. "You forget things, Dad." "I just had a feeling you'd stop by." "A feeling?" "No." I never told him. I changed my schedule last minute. I took a different route. I didn't text anyone. I glanced at his car, parked right up against the warehouse door. That meant one thing: he'd been there early. He didn't follow me. He was waiting. So there were only a few possibilities. He's been studying my habits long enough to predict when I'd come. He has some way of tracking when I leave the house schedule. Cameras, maybe even through my daughter. Or he's been watching this warehouse for days. And today he just happened to catch me but spun it into, "I came to help," to justify being there. And the worst part? Every single possibility is dirty. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't lose control. I just said, "Step aside. I'll open it myself." Kyle didn't move right away. His eyes flicked to the lock. And in that moment, I understood everything. He wasn't here to greet me. He was here to see what I kept inside. And more importantly, how I opened it. Because a hunter doesn't need to break in today. He just needs to learn the door, so he can come back tomorrow. "Dad, I was worried the old warehouse might be unsafe. I came early to check it for you. I care about you." It sounded good, but good doesn't fix logic. I looked straight at him. "You care about me, but didn't ask me a single question? You care, and somehow show up at the one place I've never told anyone about before I even get here." Kyle paused just for a beat. Then he switched tactics. "You're overthinking this, Dad. I just wanted to help. Help asks for permission. This is intrusion." I unlocked the door. The smell of dust and old wood rushed out. Kyle instinctively stepped forward to follow me in. I stopped him. "Stay outside." He forced a smile. "You don't trust me?" I shook my head slightly. "I'm not guessing. I'm observing." That shut him up, and that silence said more than any argument ever could. He didn't push back with logic, he leaned on emotion. Because hunters don't have logic. Inside, I scanned everything quickly. Most of it was untouched, but a few boxes shifted. Just slightly. That was enough. Enough to make my chest go cold. Someone had already been inside. I turned back toward the door and looked straight at Kyle. "Have you been in here?" He answered immediately. "No. I just got here. Too fast." When denial comes that fast, it's usually rehearsed. And right there, in that moment, everything locked into place in my head. Today wasn't the day the warehouse was exposed. Today was the day I caught the man who'd been circling it. I locked the warehouse like nothing had changed. But in my head, no arguing, no confrontation, just evidence. I looked at Kyle, calm as ever. "All right, thanks. You can head home." He stared at me confused, like he expected a fight. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Good, because the more he talks, the more he slips. And right now, he didn't want to slip. On the drive back, I made 2 calls. Rick, the investigator. Dana, the lawyer. No drama, no storytelling, just facts. My son-in-law showed up at a location I've never shared. Rick didn't hesitate. That kind of timing isn't coincidence. That's stalking. And stalking usually escalates to break-ins. Dana was even sharper. "Don't let him know you're suspicious. Upgrade security. Audit your documents. And set an information trap." So I acted that same night. No delay. No sleep on it. Installed wide-angle cameras around the warehouse. added vibration sensors to the door, notified local security to increase patrols, moved the most sensitive documents out immediately. But I also did one more thing. I left bait, a box labeled documents, inside harmless copies, marked in a way only I would recognize. Because if Kyle comes back, he won't go for random items. He'll go for paper. Hunters don't chase noise. They chase leverage. And now, I'm not waiting to see if he's a threat. I'm building the moment that proves it. Rick pulled nearby camera footage and kept eyes on the place from a distance. What came back wasn't just bad, it was confirmation. Kyle had been around that warehouse at least 3 times that week. Not going in, not doing anything obvious, just parking at a distance, sitting in his car, watching. Watching the gate, watching the cameras, watching the side entrance. Like a hunter sitting still long enough for the prey to forget it's being watched. Some days he came at dusk when visibility drops and people stop paying attention. Some days he came in the rain when no one wants to be outside. That's not coincidence. That's pattern. And the worst part? The day I showed up, he was already there because he'd been waiting. He just didn't expect me to arrive earlier than usual. That's why I saw him. That's the twist that hits hardest. I thought I was hiding the warehouse from everyone, but my son-in-law had already turned it into a surveillance point. He didn't need to know what was inside yet. He needed to know when I came, what I did, how I moved. And once you have that, getting inside becomes a matter of time. That gap from asking, "Do you have a warehouse?" to sitting outside it watching like that? It's not a long journey. It's a straight line. And you don't walk that line unless you've already decided something. Let me be blunt with you, because this is where most people hesitate and get burned. Kyle isn't just being curious. He's preparing for access, preparing for control, preparing for the moment you slip. And your daughter? Right now, she's not part of the plan. She's the cover, the reason he gets close enough, without raising alarms. That's the part that stings. But it's also the part you can't afford to ignore. Because once someone like that moves from questions, observation, timing, the next step is always the same. Action. And the only thing that decides whether you lose or not is whether you stay reactive or you stay one move ahead. The following week, Rick called again. This time, it wasn't just watching. Kyle had escalated. He parked like before, but now he got out, walked around the back, checked the side door, bent down, studying the lock like he was testing it. He stood exactly where the old camera couldn't see him, and then he took photos. That's the moment everything crossed the line. This wasn't stalking to understand anymore. This was stalking to enter. I watched the footage and felt that cold, steady kind of fear. The kind that doesn't panic you. It sharpens you. Because a normal man doesn't stand outside his father-in-law's warehouse, photographing locks like a locksmith planning a job. Dana didn't sugarcoat it. You prepare for a break-in now. And you make sure if he does it, you catch him clean. On evidence. Oh. End quote. Oh. End quote. So we made 2 moves. First, we upgraded security and moved every sensitive document out. No real leverage left behind. Second, we set the trap. If he went in, he wouldn't find what he wanted. He'd find what we wanted him to touch. And then I did something deliberate. I gave him a window, casually. Over nothing. I'll be out of town next week. 2 days. I said it like it didn't matter. Kyle nodded, played it cool, but his eyes, they lit up just for a split second. Like someone who just got confirmation. That's the cinematic part right there. I know he's going to make his move in that window, and he believes he picked the perfect time. That's where the balance shifts. Because now it's not hunter and prey anymore. It's 2 people, both thinking they're setting the trap, but only one of them knows it's already been set. On the night I was supposed to be out of town, I didn't go anywhere. I stayed home. Rick was in position. Security around the warehouse was already tightened. Everything was quiet on the surface. Until 1:18 a.m. The camera alert hit. A car pulled up at a distance. Engine off. Lights out. Kyle stepped out. Dark clothes, gloves, cap, a tool bag in his hand. And that's the moment it stops being suspicion. It becomes proof. Because the same man who called me Dad the night before was now standing in the dark, geared up to break into my warehouse. No hesitation, no confusion. He walked straight to the side door, the exact spot he had scoped before. Tried the lock. Didn't budge. Then he pulled out tools. The door trembled under pressure. He stopped. Looked around. Pulled out his phone. 6 minutes later, another figure arrived. That's when it escalates for real. This isn't greed anymore. This is organized. Kyle didn't panic. That's the detail that matters. He moved like someone who had rehearsed this. Watching time. Watching angles. Staying in blind spots. Trying to get in fast before any patrol passed by. Clean, efficient, intentional. But here's the part he didn't know. Tonight wasn't his hunt. Tonight was his mistake. Because everything he thought he was controlling had already been turned against him. He thought he picked the perfect window. He thought no one was watching. He thought this was the moment he finally gets inside. But in reality, this was the moment he walked straight into a trap that had been waiting for him all along. The vibration sensor tripped. Right on cue. Security rolled in along their route. Headlights swept across the wall, and Kyle froze for half a second. His partner signaled to pull out. Kyle didn't. He pushed a few seconds longer. That's the thing about greedy people, they always try one more time. Then he ran, fast enough to drop a glove. A metal tool hit the ground. Fresh pry marks left on the side door hinge clean. Undeniable. And when he turned his head, the camera caught his face. Clear enough that there's no argument left. Security filed the report. I now had everything. Video, timestamps, physical evidence. This isn't family misunderstanding anymore. This is attempted break-in. Planned. Executed. Failed. And here's the part that hits hardest. The cinematic truth of it all. The warehouse stayed locked. Nothing important was lost because I moved it in time. But Kyle, he just signed his own sentence. With his timing, because he chose the exact night I was away to make his move. Which means one thing he wasn't guessing. He was tracking my schedule. And here's a rule you don't ignore. No one attempts a break-in without watching your patterns first. And no one watches your patterns unless they already have a target in mind. At this point, you're not dealing with a mistake. You're dealing with intent. Clear. Repeated. Escalating. Intent. So don't soften it. Don't explain it away. This is where most people hesitate because it's family. And that hesitation, that's exactly what people like him count on. You didn't just catch him. You caught him mid-transition, from watcher to actor. And once someone crosses that line, they don't go back. The next morning, Kyle showed up like nothing had happened. Calm face. Casual tone. Did you sleep well, Dad? I looked straight at him. Did you sleep well last night? He paused just a fraction of a second, then smiled it off. What are you talking about? I didn't argue. I just placed my phone on the table, pressed play. Gloves, tools, the pry attempt, the call, the second man, the run, all of it. Kyle's face drained, and right on cue, he flipped the script. You were spying on me? You set me up? I didn't raise my voice. I protected what's mine. He pivoted again fast. I was just making sure your warehouse was safe. I leaned in just enough and asked one question. Checking security. With tools. At 1 a.m. Calling backup. Silence. That's the moment people run out of lies. And when they do, you see who they really are. Kyle snapped. Why are you even holding on to all that? It's going to be the family's anyway. There it was. The real truth. Not a mistake. Not concern. Not misunderstanding. Entitlement. He doesn't see it as your assets. He sees it as future inheritance. And in his mind, he's just taking it early. That's the deepest twist in the whole story, because it reveals the core. He was never trying to protect anything. He was positioning himself to control it. Your daughter standing there silent, pale, that's the moment her world shifts. Because for the first time, she's not seeing her husband as a provider. She's seeing him for what he is. A man who doesn't build a family. He hunts one. I asked Kyle. One final question. What exactly were you trying to find in that warehouse? Kyle tried to dodge. I cut him off. Don't perform for me. You watched that place for days. You got there before I did. You picked the exact night I was away. You were after something specific. Kyle licked his lips. Then he slipped. I wanted to know what you were leaving behind. I wanted to see the documents. The documents. Not the inventory. Not the equipment. The documents. Because paper is what changes lives. My daughter's voice caught in her throat. What were you planning to do with my dad's documents? Kyle snapped. You don't understand. If things aren't clear later, who's supposed to take care of you? He wrapped himself in that old excuse, I'm doing this for you. But that was never the truth. What he really wanted was position, control. He wanted to be the man in charge of the papers, so he could become the man in charge of everything else. I looked him right in the eye. You're not worried about your wife. You're worried about your power. Kyle's face flushed red. Then he did what men like him always do when they're exposed. He called me selfish. That's the way hunters think. The moment the owner refuses to feed them, suddenly the owner is the problem. But by then, my daughter understood, really understood, because a man willing to stalk her father's secret warehouse would one day stalk the rest of her life too. I did what actually protects you. I upgraded the warehouse security, new locks, more cameras, long-term patrols. I updated my will and moved sensitive assets into a trust to protect my daughter and future grandchildren. And I set legal boundaries. Kyle is no longer allowed anywhere near the warehouse or any of my documents. No gray area. No second chances disguised as keeping the peace. My daughter moved back in with me for a while to breathe, to think clearly without pressure. Kyle went through the usual cycle. First apologies, then pleading, then threats. I didn't respond. I let the lawyer handle everything. Because here's the truth most people miss. And this is where you were absolutely right to act hard. Kyle isn't sorry because he did something wrong. He's sorry because he got caught. And those are two completely different people. The first one can change. The second one, he adapts. He comes back smarter. Your daughter looked at you and said, I thought he was just greedy. And you told her, greed has limits. Stalking doesn't. That line right there, that's the core of the entire story. Because greed wants more, but stalking wants control. And control doesn't stop once it gets a piece. It keeps going until it owns everything. From that day on, you stopped seeing Kyle as family. You saw him clearly, not as a son-in-law, but as a hunter who got exposed before he could finish the job. And that's exactly how you stay one step ahead. I never told anyone about the warehouse, but he got there before I did, which means he wasn't guessing. He was watching, tracking, living inside my routine like a hunter inside someone else's secret. Real family doesn't watch you like that. Real family asks directly, respects your answer, and waits for your permission. Only a gold digger stalks you, picks the moment you're gone, and shows up in the dark with tools. So the real question isn't what you do at the end. It's what you do at the beginning. When it starts with harmless questions, when the tone is still polite, when nothing is proven yet. That's where most people make the mistake. They laugh it off to keep the peace. But peace without boundaries isn't peace. It's access. If it were me, stop answering questions about assets. Change routines immediately. Separate and secure all critical documents. Update the will and legal structure. Set clear, non-negotiable boundaries. Not aggressively. Not emotionally. Just firmly. Because once curiosity turns into surveillance, and surveillance turns into timing, you're already one step away from intrusion. You made the right call. You chose boundaries. And yeah, people might call that paranoid. But here's the truth most people learn too late. It's better to be called paranoid than to be proven right after you've already lost control. And that last line you said, that's the one people need to hear twice. When someone says, it'll all be the family's eventually anyway, that's not love. That's a claim. And if you don't challenge that mindset early, they won't wait for permission. They'll wait for opportunity.